Christmas is strictly for blood relatives, Mother announced. I smiled quietly and canceled the $8,000 renovation check while saying, "Having you here listening to me means a lot. Watch until the end and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. I'm really curious to see how far my story is reaching." Christmas is strictly for blood relatives, my mother announced, her voice cutting through the warm kitchen air like an icy blade. I stood there, frozen, the family renovation check for $8,000 still in my hand. Time seemed to slow down as I processed her words. The chatter around the dining table fell silent. My brother Mark stared at his plate. My father suddenly became very interested in stirring his coffee. "Excuse me?" I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Mom didn't even look up from the potatoes she was peeling. "We've decided to keep Christmas intimate this year. Just family." She emphasized the word family with a finality that made my stomach twist. Just family. Blood relatives. Not me, the adopted daughter who had been with them since I was 2 years old. "I see," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "And what about the renovation check? Should I still drop it off next week?" That got her attention. Mom's eyes flickered to the check in my hand, then to my face. A flash of calculation crossed her features before she composed herself. "Well, that's different, Emily. The house needs work, and you've been so generous." I nodded slowly, a strange calm settling over me. 28 years of being, almost, enough, of being loved with conditions, suddenly crystallized into perfect clarity. I smiled, not my usual people-pleasing smile, but something quieter and more genuine. For the first time, I saw the situation exactly as it was. "Of course," I replied, carefully folding the check and returning it to my purse. What Mom didn't know was that I had already made my decision. That check would never be cashed. "Will Sarah be bringing her new boyfriend?" I asked casually, referring to my cousin, a blood relative who had only appeared at family gatherings in the last few years. "Of course," Dad jumped in, looking relieved at the change of subject. "Family is family. Family is family." The irony wasn't lost on me. I excused myself and walked to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. With a few taps, I canceled the check I had just shown them. Then I went further, stopping all the automatic payments I'd been making for their mortgage assistance, utility bills, and the credit card I had added them to as authorized users. $8,000 for the renovation was just the latest in a long line of financial support I'd provided over the years. Ever since I'd started my small business 5 years ago and found unexpected success, I'd been quietly helping them. My parents had never been good with money, and I'd stepped in without them having to ask. I paid for repairs, covered gaps in their retirement fund, helped with medical bills. All while being reminded, in 100 small ways, that I wasn't really theirs. The memory of last Christmas flashed in my mind, Mom showing off the family photo album to relatives. "This is our bloodline going back 4 generations," she had said proudly. I wasn't in a single picture. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. At 30, I had built a successful interior design business from nothing. I had a home, friends who valued me, and financial stability. What I didn't have, had never had, was the unconditional love of the people who were supposed to be my parents. When I returned to the dining room, everyone was gathered around the table. Mom was passing around her famous apple pie, the one she always made, just for family gatherings. "There you are, Emily," Mark said, looking uncomfortable. At 32, my brother had never held a steady job, had moved back home twice after failed relationships, and still borrowed money regularly from our parents. And from me, though they didn't know about that. "Everything okay?" Dad asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "Everything's perfect," I replied, and I meant it. The truth had finally been laid bare, and there was something freeing about it. I wouldn't be spending another Christmas trying to earn a place at a table where I'd never truly been welcome. I took a bite of pie and smiled. For the first time, I was seeing my family, and myself, clearly. and I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I drove home that evening with the radio off, preferring the quiet. Fall leaves swirled in my headlights as memories surfaced one after another, each one a small cut that had never quite healed. My 10th birthday party, where Mom had introduced me to a distant relative as the girl we took in. Not her daughter. Not Emily. Just the girl. My high school graduation, where Dad had beamed with pride at Mark's average grades but barely acknowledged my valedictorian speech. "He's a chip off the old block," Dad had said, squeezing Mark's shoulder. I'd stood to the side, my honor cords and medals feeling suddenly heavy and meaningless. College applications, where they'd helped Mark with every essay, paid for his SAT prep courses, and taken him on campus tours. I'd done everything alone, staying up late after my part-time job to write applications that eventually earned me a scholarship. Each memory was a reminder that I'd always been separate, different, tolerated but never fully embraced. When I reached my small but comfortable house, I sat in the driveway for a long moment. 5 years ago, I'd purchased this place with the profits from my interior design business, a business I'd built without a single dollar of family support. While Mark had received a loan, never to be repaid, to try his hand at 3 different failed ventures, I'd work nights at a local bar to save for my business license. Inside, I kicked off my shoes and made myself a cup of tea. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Don't forget about the check. Dad wants to start the renovation next week." I set the phone down without replying and opened my laptop instead. One by one, I logged into every account where I'd set up automatic payments to help them. The mortgage supplement. The utility assistance. The credit card I paid off monthly. I canceled everything. It wasn't about revenge. It was about self-preservation. I'd never told them how much I was actually helping. They'd always minimized it, Emily's chipping in a little this month, as if my contributions were casual, insignificant acts rather than the systematic financial support they'd come to rely on. My phone buzzed again. Mark this time. "Hey, can you spot me $300? Car trouble again. I'll pay you back next month." Next month. Like the next month he'd promised for the past 2 years, totaling nearly $7,000 in loans I'd never see again. I typed back, "Sorry, not this time. Ask Mom and Dad." 3 dots appeared as he typed, disappeared, then reappeared. "What's your problem? You've got the money. It's not like you have anyone else to spend it on." There it was, the casual cruelty I'd normalized for so long. Because I was single, because I'd chosen career over marriage at 30, my money wasn't really mine. It belonged to the family I wasn't really part of. I closed my phone without replying and pulled out my old photo albums instead. Unlike Mom's carefully curated family albums that excluded me, mine told a different story. There I was at 5, standing slightly apart at a family reunion, clutching a teddy bear while the real cousins posed together. At 12, my science fair victory, beaming with a blue ribbon. No family members in the photo, just my teacher with her arm around my shoulders. At 22, my college graduation. I'd had to book my own hotel room because they'd decided to stay with Mark at his apartment. It was more convenient. What struck me most wasn't the events themselves but the pattern. The consistent message that I was close but not quite family. Good enough to help with bills but not good enough for Christmas dinner. My doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. It was Lisa, my best friend since college, holding a bottle of wine. "I was in the neighborhood and saw your lights on," she said, but her concerned expression told me she'd sensed something was wrong. I let her in, grateful for the company. "You went to your parents today, didn't you?" she asked, pouring us each a glass. What happened? I told her everything, the Christmas announcement, the renovation check, the years of one-sided financial support. Lisa listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "Emily," she said finally, setting down her glass. "Do you realize how much you've given them? Not just money, but chances to treat you like their daughter, chances to show you the same love they show Mark. And they've failed every time." I nodded, tears welling up for the first time. I always thought if I just did enough, gave enough, eventually I'd earn my place, I whispered. But that's not how family is supposed to work, is it? Lisa shook her head. No, it's not. After she left, I sat at my kitchen table and made a list of everything I'd paid for in the last 5 years. The total was staggering, nearly $45,000. Not counting the renovation check, not counting the smaller loans to Mark. I'd been trying to buy what couldn't be bought, unconditional love. My phone buzzed again. Dad, this time, your mother says you're not answering texts. We need to discuss the renovation schedule. I set the phone down and looked around my home, the home I'd created for myself, decorated with my own designs, paid for with my own success. For the first time, I felt something beyond hurt or resignation. I felt anger. Clean, clarifying anger. Christmas is for blood relatives, I said to the empty room, tasting the words. Fine. Let's see how far blood goes when the money stops flowing. 3 weeks passed with increasing messages from my family. Each one more urgent than the last. Emily, the mortgage payment was short this month. There must be some mistake. The utility company called about a missed payment. Can you check on that? Did you forget to make the credit card payment? They're charging us late fees. I read each message but didn't respond. Not yet. I was giving myself time to breathe, to think clearly without the constant pull of obligation. November turned colder. I threw myself into work, accepting new clients and expanding my business. Without the drain of supporting my family financially, I hired an assistant, something I'd needed for years but couldn't afford while sending money elsewhere. The silence from my side was deliberate, but it was also healing. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't organizing my finances around their needs. I wasn't calculating how much of my earnings would go to my own life versus theirs. It was a Thursday evening when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Mark, looking disheveled and angry. What the hell, Emily? He demanded, pushing past me into the house. Mom and Dad are freaking out. The bank called about the mortgage. Dad says you've been helping with payments? Yes, I said simply, closing the door against the chill. I have been. Mark stared at me, confusion replacing anger. For how long? 3 years. How much? About $1,000 a month. He whistled low. Jesus, Em. Why didn't they tell me? Why would they? I asked. You've never paid a bill in your life. The harshness of my tone surprised us both. Mark flinched, then his eyes narrowed. Look, whatever your problem is, you need to fix this. Dad's talking about taking out a loan to cover the renovation, and Mom's stressed about the mortgage. You can't just cut them off without warning. I took a deep breath. Actually, I can. And I did. Why? Because they didn't invite you for Christmas? Get over yourself. It's just one holiday. It's not about Christmas, Mark. It's about finally seeing the truth. What truth? That I will never be enough. I will never be family. Not really. Mark rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. Of course you're family. Am I? When was the last time Mom introduced me as her daughter, not the girl we adopted? When was the last time they made any decision with me in mind? When was the last time they put the same effort into my life that they put into yours? Mark shifted uncomfortably. That's different. I've had struggles. We've all had struggles. The difference is that I've faced mine alone while carrying the weight of this family's financial problems. And I'm done. Mark's phone buzzed. He checked it and grimaced. It's Dad. He wants to know if I'm talking to you. What are you going to tell him? That you've lost your mind. He headed for the door, then turned back. They need that money, Emily. They're counting on it. Maybe it's time they counted on themselves for a change. Or on you. After he left, I sat in the silence of my living room. I'd expected to feel guilty, but instead, I felt lighter, as if I'd put down a burden I'd been carrying for too long. The weeks leading up to Christmas were filled with increasingly desperate messages from my parents. Dad called 13 times in one day. Mom sent a text saying they might lose the house. Mark alternated between angry tirades and awkward attempts at reconciliation. I maintained my distance, speaking only through brief, factual texts. I'm not providing financial support anymore. This is a permanent decision. You'll need to find another solution. Meanwhile, my business flourished. Without the constant drain of supporting my family, I invested in new design software, attended a conference I'd always wanted to go to, and even hired a second assistant. I also started saying yes to social invitations I'd previously declined because of family obligations or financial constraints. I joined a book club, went on a weekend trip with friends from college, and even started dating someone I'd met at a local art show. My life, once centered around filling the gaps in my family's needs, was now my own. And it was becoming richer by the day. A week before Christmas, Lisa invited me to join her family for the holiday. "You can't be alone on Christmas, Emily," she insisted. "My parents would love to have you. My brother's bringing his new girlfriend, my sister's kids are coming, it'll be chaos, but the good kind." "Are you sure?" I asked. "Won't your parents mind?" Lisa laughed. "Are you kidding? My mom's been trying to adopt you since freshman year. She already asked if you still like pumpkin pie." The simple kindness of the invitation brought tears to my eyes. All these years, I'd been pouring everything into a family that considered me an outsider, while overlooking the people who genuinely wanted me in their lives. The day before Christmas Eve, I received a text from Dad: "House is freezing. Furnace broke. Repair company wants $2,500 we don't have. Please, Emily. It's Christmas." I read it twice, feeling a familiar tug of responsibility, the ingrained instinct to drop everything and solve their problems. Instead, I set my phone aside and wrapped the presents I'd bought for Lisa's family. Tomorrow, I would celebrate Christmas with people who wanted me there, not because of what I could give them, but simply because of who I was. And for the first time, that felt exactly right. Lisa's family home was nothing like the pristine, magazine-worthy house I grew up in. It was smaller, slightly cluttered, with mismatched furniture and walls crowded with family photos spanning decades. Christmas decorations filled every corner, not the coordinated, elegant displays my mother insisted on, but a collection of handmade ornaments, paper snowflakes, and heirloom decorations with stories behind each one. And it was the warmest place I'd ever been. "Emily." Lisa's mother enveloped me in a tight hug the moment I stepped through the door. "We're so glad you're here. Come in, come in. David, Emily's here." Lisa's father appeared from the kitchen, wearing an apron with "Kiss the Cook" emblazoned across it, flour dusting his beard. He gave me a quick hug, leaving a flower handprint on my sweater that neither of us bothered to brush away. "About time you joined us for Christmas," he said with a genuine smile. "Lisa's been telling us to kidnap you for years." The house was filled with noise, children running through the halls, music playing, multiple conversations happening at once. Lisa's brother waved from where he was setting up a board game with his girlfriend. Her sister called a greeting while trying to wrangle an energetic 5-year-old. No one treated me like a guest or an outsider. I was simply accepted, folded into the chaos as if I'd always been part of it. Lisa appeared at my elbow with a mug of hot chocolate. "Overwhelming, isn't it?" she whispered with a grin. "A little," I admitted. "But in a good way." As the evening progressed, I found myself relaxing, laughing, joining conversations without calculating my words. When presents were exchanged after dinner, I was shocked to find several packages with my name on them. "But I didn't expect. I only brought gifts for you and your parents," I stammered to Lisa. "You think my mom wouldn't have gifts for you?" Lisa rolled her eyes. "She's been shopping for you since October. Just go with it." Mrs. Anderson's gifts were perfect: a set of specialty drawing pens I'd mentioned wanting months ago, a hand-knit scarf in my favorite color, and a cookbook with comfort food recipes, because that apartment of yours needs more home cooking. I hadn't cried in front of others in years, but I felt tears threatening. This woman, who had no obligation to me, had paid more attention to my preferences than my own mother ever had. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. After dinner, while helping with dishes, I finally checked. 5 missed calls from Mom. 3 from Dad. A dozen texts. Furnace still broken. House freezing. Mark can't help. Please call back. It's Christmas Eve, Emily. Don't do this to your family. We need you. I stared at the messages, feeling the familiar pull of guilt and responsibility. Then I looked up at the scene before me, Lisa and her brother arguing good-naturedly about the proper way to load a dishwasher, their father sneaking more pie while their mother pretended not to notice, the children constructing elaborate designs with their new building blocks. This was what family looked like. Not obligation. Not conditional acceptance. Just belonging. I turned off my phone and rejoined the group. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow and the excited shrieks of Lisa's nieces and nephews. We gathered in pajamas around the tree, drinking coffee and opening gifts amid a flurry of torn wrapping paper. It was nothing like the formal Christmas mornings of my childhood, where presents were opened one at a time, with appropriate thanks expressed before the next person could begin. Here, it was joyful chaos. My phone remained off. Whatever crisis my family was facing, they would have to solve it without me. After breakfast, while the kids played with their new toys and Lisa helped her mother prepare for dinner, I stepped outside onto the back porch. The world was silent under its blanket of snow, peaceful in a way that matched the new calm I felt inside. Mind some company? I turned to find Lisa's father, offering me a fresh cup of coffee. Not at all, I replied, accepting the mug gratefully. We stood in companionable silence for a few minutes, watching the snow fall. Lisa told us a bit about your situation, he said finally. Hope you don't mind. I don't. Family's a funny thing, he continued. Most people think it's about blood, but in my experience, it's about choice. Every day, we choose who we love, who we care for, who we make room for in our lives. He sipped his coffee. Sounds like your folks stopped choosing you a long time ago. The simple truth of his words settled over me like the snow, gentle but transformative. I kept choosing them, I said quietly. Even when they made it clear I wasn't really part of the family. That speaks well of you, he replied. But at some point, you have to choose yourself too. Before I could respond, the back door opened, and Lisa's uncle appeared. Emily? There's someone here for you. Curious, I followed him back inside and through the house to the front door. Standing on the porch, looking uncomfortable and out of place, was my Uncle Robert, my father's younger brother. Uncle Robert? What are you doing here? He shifted awkwardly, hands deep in his coat pockets. Can we talk for a minute? We stepped outside onto the front porch, the cold immediately biting through my sweater. How did you find me? I asked. Called around. Lisa's number was in your parents' address book. He hesitated. I wanted to see if you're okay. I'm fine, I replied, surprised by his concern. Uncle Robert had always been kind to me, but we weren't particularly close. Is everyone else okay? He grimaced. Physically, yes. Otherwise. He trailed off. The furnace broke. They're using space heaters. Your dad tried to fix it himself and made it worse. I know. They've texted. They said you cut them off. Financially, I mean. I nodded, waiting for the judgment, the pressure to reconsider. Instead, he surprised me. Good for you. What? Emily, I've watched them take advantage of you for years. We all have. Nobody said anything because, well, family politics. But what they did, excluding you from Christmas after everything you've done, that crossed a line. I stared at him, speechless. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in the family agrees with how they've treated you. And... He hesitated. I wanted to make sure you're okay. For the second time in 24 hours, I felt tears threatening. I'm okay, I managed. Really? This is the best Christmas I've had in years. He nodded, relief evident in his expression. Good. That's good. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Your brother's business failed again. That's why your parents are so desperate, they co-signed his loan. Of course they had. Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. As I watched Uncle Robert drive away, I felt the last threads of guilt begin to unravel. My parents' financial crisis wasn't because I'd stopped helping, it was because they'd never stopped enabling Mark's irresponsibility. When I went back inside, Lisa took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. Everything okay? She asked. I nodded, surprised to realize it was true. Yeah. Everything's exactly as it should be. And for the first time in my adult life, I believed it. January arrived with biting winds and record low temperatures. I threw myself into work, expanding my business and even looking into commercial office space instead of working from home. My phone remained mostly silent now. My family's desperate messages had tapered off after Christmas, replaced by a strange silence that was somehow worse. I tried to ignore the nagging sense of unfinished business. I'd made my decision. I'd chosen myself. Why, then, did I still feel this pull? The answer came on a particularly frigid Tuesday morning, when Lisa stopped by my house unexpectedly. I need to tell you something, she said, her expression unusually serious. And you might be angry with me. What is it? She took a deep breath. I drove by your parents' house yesterday. It looks bad, Emily. There's a tarp on part of the roof. The front steps are broken. I saw your mom leaving in her nurse's uniform. She looked exhausted. I stiffened. Why were you there? Because I was worried about you. Lisa met my gaze directly. You've been different lately. Quieter. I know you made the right decision cutting them off, but I also know you. You need closure, not just distance. I wanted to be angry, but she was right. Despite everything, I couldn't fully move forward without confronting the past one last time. There's something else, Lisa added hesitantly. Your dad's been sick. Pneumonia, I think. Your mom mentioned it to Mrs. Chen at the grocery store. That explained the silence. Not acceptance, but inability. That afternoon, I found myself driving the familiar route to my childhood home. I wasn't going to rescue them. I wasn't going back on my decision. I was just going to retrieve the few remaining personal items I'd left behind and say what needed to be said. As I pulled into the driveway, the sight of the house shocked me. I'd grown up in what had once been the nicest home on the block, my father's pride and joy, meticulously maintained. Now, it looked neglected. The paint was peeling. The garden was dead. The promised renovation clearly hadn't happened. For a moment, I considered driving away. Then I saw the curtain move. Someone had spotted me. No turning back now. I approached the front door, noticing the cracked steps Lisa had mentioned. Before I could knock, the door opened. My mother stood there, looking older than she had just a few months ago. The carefully maintained appearance she'd always prided herself on had slipped. Her hair was unstyled, her clothes rumpled. Emily. Her voice was flat. Not welcoming, not angry. Just stating a fact. I've come for my things, I said, equally neutral. The box is in the attic. My grandmother's recipe book. The quilt from my bed. She nodded, stepping aside to let me in. The house was cold, much colder than it should have been. Space heaters hummed in the corners. Your father's upstairs, she said. He's been ill. I nodded but didn't inquire further. I headed straight for the stairs, then up to the attic. I found my boxes easily. They were stacked neatly in the corner, labeled in my own handwriting. Childhood drawings. School awards. Books I couldn't fit in my apartment when I first moved out. As I carried the first box down, I passed my parents' bedroom. The door was ajar. I glimpsed my father in bed, propped up on pillows, looking gaunt and pale. He saw me too. "Emily?" I paused, then set the box down in the hallway and stepped into the doorway. "I heard you were sick," I said. He nodded. "Pneumonia. It's better now." An awkward silence stretched between us. "Why are you here?" he finally asked. "To get my things. That's all?" I didn't answer immediately. What was I really doing here? Getting my possessions was just an excuse. I wanted, what? Acknowledgement? Apology? Understanding? "You've let the house fall apart," I said instead. He grimaced. "No choice. No money for repairs since you." He trailed off. "Since I stopped paying for everything? That's not fair, Emily. Isn't it? For years, I've been supporting this family. Paying bills. Covering Mark's loans. Financing repairs. And all that time, you and Mom made sure I knew I wasn't really part of the family. That's not true. Christmas is strictly for blood relatives," I quoted, the words still sharp enough to cut. Those were Mom's exact words. He flinched. "She didn't mean." "Yes, she did. And so did you. Every time you introduced me as the girl we adopted instead of your daughter. Every time you helped Mark but left me to figure things out on my own. Every time you treated me like I was less than him because I don't share your DNA." My father looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "I never meant to hurt you," he said finally. "But you did. And the worst part? I kept letting you. I kept trying to earn a place in this family by paying your bills, solving your problems. I thought if I just gave enough, eventually you'd love me the way you love Mark. We do love you." "No," I cut him off. "You don't. Not the way parents should love their child. Unconditionally. Without keeping score." I turned to leave, then paused, looking back at him. "The truth is, Dad, I didn't come here for my things. I came here to say goodbye properly. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done." As I walked down the hall, my mother appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Her expression was different now, the practiced neutrality gone, replaced by something I'd rarely seen on her face, vulnerability. "Emily, please," she began. "I'm taking my things and leaving," I said quietly. "I've already said everything I needed to say." "We need you," she whispered. I looked at her steadily. "No, you need my money. That's not the same thing." For the first time in my life, I saw my mother speechless, without a careful response prepared. And in that moment, I knew I'd finally broken free. 2 years passed. I sat on the deck of my new house, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. My business had grown from a one-woman operation to a thriving design firm with 8 employees. We'd been featured in 3 major design magazines, and I had just signed a contract to design the interiors for a new boutique hotel downtown. The house itself was everything I'd dreamed of, not ostentatious, but beautiful and thoughtfully designed. 3 bedrooms, an open kitchen perfect for entertaining, and a dedicated studio where I could sketch and create. Most importantly, it was mine, paid for with my own success. A gentle kick from inside made me smile and rest my hand on my rounded belly. 6 months pregnant, and still marveling at the miracle growing within me. "Lemonade?" Michael appeared in the doorway, holding 2 glasses. My husband of 8 months moved across the deck to join me, his easy smile warming me more than the evening sun. "Thanks," I said, taking the glass. "I was just thinking. About your parents?" I nodded. We'd received the news last week that my father had suffered a stroke. Not severe, but serious enough to require extended care. Uncle Robert had called to let me know. "Do you regret cutting ties?" Michael asked gently. I considered the question carefully, as I had many times over the past 2 years. No, I said finally. I tried for 30 years to be the daughter they wanted. To earn my place in that family. When I finally stopped trying, I found room to build the life I actually wanted. Michael nodded, understanding without needing more explanation. That was one of the things I loved most about him, his acceptance of my story without trying to rewrite it. We'd met through a mutual friend 15 months ago. On our third date, I'd told him everything about my family. Instead of the awkward sympathy I'd come to expect, he'd simply said, "Their loss." And meant it. Lisa appeared from inside, carrying a tray of appetizers. She and her husband were joining us for dinner, a weekly tradition we'd maintained since I moved into the new house. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing our serious expressions. "Just the usual family reflections," I replied with a small smile. Lisa set down the tray and squeezed my shoulder. "Speaking of family, my mom called earlier. She wanted to know if we've decided on a crib yet. She found one she thinks is perfect." I laughed. "Tell her not to buy anything else. This baby already has more stuff than our guest room can hold." Mrs. Anderson had been ecstatic about my pregnancy, immediately claiming grandmother rights despite no biological connection. She called weekly with advice, sent packages of baby clothes, and had already volunteered to help after the birth. As we moved inside for dinner, I thought about what family truly meant. In the 2 years since I'd walked away from my parents' house, I'd created a life filled with genuine connections. Lisa and her family. Michael and his warm, boisterous relatives who had welcomed me without reservation. My colleagues and friends who celebrated my successes and supported me through challenges. I hadn't spoken to my parents since that day, though I'd heard updates through Uncle Robert. The house had continued to deteriorate until they finally sold it, moving to a small apartment closer to Mom's workplace. Mark had drifted between jobs, still living partially on their support. Some things never changed. After dinner, while Lisa and her husband helped Michael with the dishes, I slipped away to the nursery. The room was nearly finished, walls painted a soft green, furniture assembled, shelves filled with books and toys gifted by friends who couldn't wait to meet the baby. I ran my hand over the quilt draped over the rocking chair, the one thing I'd taken from my childhood bedroom during that final visit. My birth mother's mother had made it for me before I was born. Before my parents died in the accident that left me an orphan at 2. It was my only connection to them. My adoptive family may have rejected me, but I would make sure my child never felt that rejection. Blood didn't make a family, love did. Acceptance did. The daily choice to see someone fully and value them for exactly who they are. The sound of laughter drifted from the kitchen. Real, uninhibited joy. The kind I'd rarely experienced in my childhood home, where appearances always mattered more than happiness. Uncle Robert had asked if I wanted to visit my father in the hospital. I declined, not out of anger or revenge, but because some bridges, once burned, couldn't, and shouldn't, be rebuilt. The apologies that had come too late, prompted by financial need rather than genuine remorse, couldn't erase decades of conditional love. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. "I know, little one," I whispered. "You'll never have to earn your place in this family. You already have it, forever, no matter what." My phone buzzed with a text from Michael, "Everything okay?" I smiled and typed back, "Everything's perfect." And it was. Not because everything was easy or because pain didn't exist. But because I'd finally learned that family wasn't defined by blood or legal documents. It wasn't something you earned through sacrifice or financial support. Family was built choice by choice, day by day, through love that asked for nothing in return. As I rejoined my friends, my family, in the kitchen, I felt the last shadow of my past slip away. The circle of warmth around me was complete without the people who had chosen, repeatedly, to keep me outside their circle. My mother's words from 2 years ago echoed one last time: "Christmas is strictly for blood relatives," and then faded away, replaced by the simple truth I now lived every day: blood doesn't define family. Love does. And love, real love, never keeps score.